You don't need anything outside of you to be sexually sovereign, to be sexually empowered and empowered in your cycle.
Hey guys, welcome to our SoulFam Podcast, where I interview space holders from all over the world. I am your host, my name is Karolina, and I am the Connection Catalyst. I help spiritual entrepreneurs experience deeper connection with themselves, with others, and with the universe. Today on the show, we have Melissa Sanger, the womb witch and the feminine empowerment guide. Welcome to the show, Melissa. How are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. So happy to have this conversation in with the intention to share this wisdom and empower and illuminate a lot of taboos for as many womb keepers and as many humans as we can in 45 minutes.
Oh my God. Yes, I love diving into taboos. This is what I love. It's like my passion, because then my curiosity is so, up and running. And yeah, I just feel like, we're going to talk about sexuality and womb healing and like contraception and all these things that are actually not very talked about like so often in our society, which is really a pity, because I feel like it's such a big part of our life. The sexuality is such a big part of our life, and it shouldn't be a taboo, but unfortunately still right now it is. But thanks to people like you and me who talk about this stuff, maybe it's not gonna be very soon. So it's gonna be really amazing to talk to you. So you are a womb witch, right? So I'm super curious to know, how did you get to this identity of a womb witch? What has brought you on this path, and what does the path of a womb witch look like?
Great question. So the title really came into its own when I started exploring and researching and delving into the history of my maternal witch ancestry of Celtic Druid origins. And I ran a previous course called Menstrual Cycle Empowerment that we had a whole module. Each module was in an ode to a phase of the menstrual cycle. And I work with the archetypes in the menstrual cycle. For each phase, we work with goddess archetypes. And I work with, in the luteal phase, so premenstrual, the 10 to 14 days before you bleed, I work with the archetype of the witch. And for me, she's like the inner alchemist, the ultimate alchemist who can emotionally alchemize, internally alchemize, transmute, and also alchemize with the plants, with healing, with holistic healing, with energetic healing. And yeah, so when I started to go more into the roots of the word witch, there's many different roots, but one of them is Wicce, Wicce, and it basically means female magician or sorceress. And for me, the word sorceress is someone who can source from themselves, from within themselves. So yeah, when I started to kind of unpack all of the conditioning and the misinformation and miseducation around the story of witches that we've been kind of like given as a brainwash, I started to realize, and I also read this incredible book by Lisa Lister called Witch. And she's a hereditary witch from England, from Glastonbury. I believe she's from Glastonbury. That might not be correct, but she definitely lives in Glastonbury now. And she reframes the witch as a medicine woman or a woman in her power. And like that just activated so much in my body. And I was like, yes, like somebody was giving me it's like somebody was offering me permission to just be myself. And for me, a womb witch is like an alchemist, a healer, a medicine woman of the womb and of the uterus and of the pelvis. It could be also a pelvis witch, if you like. And for me, it's like a reclamation of the way that I work. I work hands-on with hands-on womb healing, hands-on pelvic recalibration, like ceremonial body work. I've created a session that's like a ceremony for womb, pelvic, body healing that's about 3 to 4 hours, that's in service to you uniquely and your journey. And I'm also working with plants. I'm a herbalist, and Like I work with energy and shamanic healing. So it's really like an all-encompassing term for my work in a way. And truly the pillar of my work is everything comes back to the womb, whether it's to do with sexuality, whether it's to do with womb wisdom, whether it's to do with ancestry, whether it's to do with just embodiment. For me, it always comes back to the womb. So it's kind of the focal point. And then I forgot what your second question was.
I asked how
How
did
did
you
I get
get
here?
to be the womb witch right now? Like what has started the journey?
Mm, mm. Yeah, so many parts that I could tell of that story. I think the most important part is probably the fact that, so I lost my period twice in my life. The first time I lost it when I was 14, 15 due to severe anorexia. And then I got it back after gaining weight and kind of changing my lifestyle, but still, like, I had terrible periods. I had like incredibly debilitating period cramps. I I was in bed taking like the strongest. It was called Feminax, like the strongest ibuprofen. And I remember thinking like, this can't be what it is to be a woman. Like, there's no way that this is what being a woman is. Like, this is not it. But I didn't have any other kind of option or any kind of role models. So then I lost it again when I in my late teens for nearly 3 years, and it was from a cacophony of different things. Like I was recovering from substance abuse. Like I used to drink and party and take a lot of drugs. My body was suffering. I had a lot of unhealed sexual trauma that from my teenage years, and even attracting in partners later in life, like that still instilled that pattern and that trauma that I hadn't healed. So was kind of frozen in my body, disembodied. I had like very, very severe bulimia and anorexia at that time. Well, for all of my teenagers. And I had ovarian cysts. I was also coming off the what do you call that? The Marina coil, the contraceptive coil, and a lot of other things. But like all those things were happening at once, and then I broke up with my ex, so it was like big shutdown of my body, and there were parts of that relationship that were not sexually healthy, and so my whole yoni and body shut down, and I lost my moon. And it was my womb's way of being like, hello, look at me, heal me, talk to me, like pay attention to me, because I'd never even looked down into my body. So yeah, the first kind of year I was like super linear and just living life in some kind of form of masculine hormones, and I didn't really feel any difference, and I didn't care, and I didn't really think about it. Like I knew in the back of my head, but then about the second year in, I started to really feel like there was something missing within me, like there was something fundamental to my essence that felt missing. And I felt that beginning of the grieving of my period, of my moon and my womb. And so I started to go to doctors, and I've been to doctors before, so I kind of knew the whole spiel. And it was the same story, like put on weight, change your diet, go on the pill, which is actually false information, because when you bleed on the pill, it's not a real bleed. It's not a natural bleed. And so there's like a part of me that's like so determined. I'm such a determined person. And I was like, I was young, like I was like 18, 19. I was like, if I'm not going to get the answers here, I have to look somewhere else. But I was like, I've been practicing yoga since I was 16. But it wasn't necessarily super spiritual or super deep or super embodied. It was more like a sport. But there was a part of me that wanted to transition into teaching yoga. So, and I was living in London and studying London at that time, and I was going to yoga classes, but I couldn't find ones that were like deep and spiritual and connected to breath and connected to the body. And I didn't really know what that looked like or what that meant, but somehow I knew that that's what I was looking for. So I was like, why don't I just learn how to teach it, and then I can provide the gap that's missing. And so I Googled like spiritual yoga teacher trainings, and I can't really remember how it happened, but like the first one that came up was this teacher training in Ecuador that was Tantra yoga, shamanism, and plant medicine. And part of it was to work with indigenous shamans of the area and to be part of plant medicine. And I think I'd heard like, but I didn't really know what plant medicine was. And I just saw it, and like I just booked it. I just saw it and I was like, I felt the soul calling, and I was like, yes, that's what I want to do. And so I then, yeah, after a really long summer of a lot of self-destructing and drinking, and my body was suffering, I had this huge car accident that I almost died. And it completely shifted up and made me look at my life and look at myself. It took a while for everything to land. But I realized that I was really disrespecting my body, and I was like, something has to change. And also during that time, I had one sexual experience that was really unhealthy, and I felt really degraded and used, and I felt like an object. And those two things happened within the space in a week. And I was like, right, I'm going to stop this lifestyle somehow. Like, I need help, but I'm going to stop. I'm not going to have sex with anyone until I figure out what's happening in my body and how I can heal my trauma. And I'm going to go try and figure out how to get my moon back. And then 2 weeks later, I flew, just by how life comes in, I flew to Ecuador to do that training. And that was the first time that I experienced life without alcohol, without makeup, like just coming, like so much clarity and like coming to my body for the first time. And the Tantra yoga practice is like 2-3 hours. So, and closed eyes and deep breathing and super slow. And it was the first time I've really met my body in that way. And in that, I started an intention setting of like, I want to get my period back. And I started sharing it with some of the shamans we were working with. And there were two in particular, a couple, but two in particular that we worked with that I really connected with, and they're still really dear to my heart now. One of them I work closely with to this day. And they started kind of sharing more about womb healing with me and started giving me language for things that I was experiencing that I didn't have language for. And I guess it all kind of started from there. And then lots of different things happened. I went back and forth, but eventually I came back to Ecuador, and I ended up traveling around Ecuador and then Peru and then Guatemala, but starting in Ecuador. And I lived with one of the medicine women in her house in the middle of the Andean mountains, like in the middle of nowhere. And I looked after her children and helped her to clean and like take care of the space. And she kind of worked with me on my womb and my womb healing in a shamanic way. And sometimes we did like medicine ceremony, not this time. This one I'm sharing about was not with psychedelic medicine, but like more shamanic energy ceremony for my womb for like 2-3 days. Like we were just in it all the time. And she really, really helped me and supported me opening that portal that I didn't really know I had. And then about a year and a half of intense, devoted, dedicated womb healing, shamanic womb healing, I finally got to the point where I got my blood back. And I got my blood back here where I live in Mexico now. And when I got it back, I'd already started to study about the menstrual cycle in preparation to receive it again, in more of a spiritual way. But when I got it back and I saw my blood, I just remember thinking, oh my God, goddess, this is the most beautiful. It was so red and so rich and so vibrant and radiant. And I remember just thinking, this is the most beautiful medicine elixir that I've ever seen. Looking at it in my moon cup, and I was like, I made a vow to myself, which to be honest, I haven't exactly kept always, but to the best of my ability, to never just throw away this sacred essence, this sacred elixir ever again. Like to always be in ceremony every moon, every time I bleed, be in ceremony and honor that, and connect and like honor my feminine. And the final part of that story is, yeah, when I decided to get my blood back, I realized that I had a lot of tools from my own initiations, and I'm still initiating and learning all the time. Even now, up until the day I die, I'm learning. But I realized that there were a lot of women who had their periods missing, had fertility issues, had painful periods, had like all of this plethora of pelvic issues and body disembodiments. And I realized that I had a lot of tools and I was passionate about them. So I started to share them. And then the parts about sexuality started to come up, and I was like, then I went on another journey inside myself. Instead of like the voyage through the world, I went on a voyage inside myself and started my own kind of sexual healing and sexual liberation with Taoism and Tantra and sacred sexuality. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit. So like it was kind of outward voyage and then inward voyage, and then I'm still kind of doing that now. I'm still like traveling, and then I stop and I pause and I share, and then I like collect and then I share, and it's a beautiful dance that I have been dancing for the last 3 years now, offering.
This is
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you so much for sharing this story. It's so inspiring. And it's crazy how one pull into one direction, like, for example, this decision to go on a retreat to do plant medicine, is such a life shift, right? Like, one decision is just such a completely different life right now, that the path that you're on. Thank you so much. It's a beautiful, inspiring story. And so, speaking of womb healing, I feel like not every woman knows what it means to heal your womb. And so, do you have maybe anything like maybe a little meditation or exercise or something that anyone could do at home without having to go into the whole shamanic journey of, a few days of womb healing? Something just really simple for all the people who listen, that they can literally try it after we finish this podcast, after they finish listening to it.
Yeah. So there's so many, it's like peeling an onion with the womb. It's like you can start and then you can keep going, and then you end up discovering your own power, and then you end up discovering your ancestral power, and then you end up discovering that you have a portal to the universe inside your pelvis, and then you realize the infinite power of your womb space and your womb. And so a really beautiful place to start with just that beginning relationship is first just the awareness that it's a relationship. And if there's been a relationship that hasn't been healthy or hasn't been nourished, or there's been some dishonoring and disrespect or unconscious actions, sometimes it always takes, I think, love, attention, compassion, forgiveness, presence, commitment to heal that relationship. So approaching it like you're re-nourishing a new relationship, like an old sister that you haven't seen in a long time. And it's like coming with that tenderness and coming with that gentleness to yourself and to your womb. And something so simple you can try, which is something I recommend that all of my clients do, and something I do every day without fail, I'm pretty sure. I don't really miss a day, is just to breathe into your pelvis, like expand your pelvis back as well in all directions like a balloon, and send your breath all the way down. Often for a lot of women and even people, men too, to breathe down into their pelvis is like really challenging, because we usually breathe from kind of the lungs or the top half of the lungs. So a big part of tantric breath and like the breath work that you learn in Taoism and Tantra is like breathing all the way down into your pelvis, and it's a practice. You have to retrain the muscles. But now I'm able to breathe in all parts of my abdomen or my torso. And so practice like placing your hands on your womb and just breathe. It's like almost at the beginning, it's like kind of you've got to fake it a little bit, and then you start to train the muscles. But to practice sending fresh blood flow, fresh presence, fresh oxygen into your pelvis. And as you're doing so, you can just connect with your womb, even if you have a physical womb or you've had a hysterectomy or a procedure, you still have the energetical blueprint, imprint. Some people call it like a phantom womb. For sure, you still have the portal inside of your body. So, and the same with your ovaries, the same with your cervix, all of these things. So you can connect to your womb, and as you're breathing, send your loving presence into this space. Loving awareness and loving presence is the most healing thing, I think, on this planet, one of them. And to, as you're doing so, just breathe light. You can breathe golden light into your womb, into your ovaries, into your cervix, and just breathe this beautiful, nourishing, golden sunlight or light, glittering light into your womb. And I invite you, as you're doing it, to breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, with an audible breath. And having this simple practice of spending 2 minutes at first, if you need to, and then 3 minutes, and then 4 minutes, and then 5 minutes. 5 minutes a day is perfect. And breathing deeply, expanding your pelvis, sending love and presence, and holding your palms over your womb. You can even say the words like, I'm so sorry that I haven't been here, but I'm here now. And allow the
Beautiful.
emotions,
That's so
allow
beautiful.
the things that want to come up, just to like come up. Just allow yourself to be with the grief, or there's always like a sense of grief and excitement. The womb's like super happy or you're connecting now, but it's also like grieving centuries and also personal wounds and disconnection. So just allowing the beauty of your full spectrum of womb experience to come forth. And if you practice this every day, your life will really change. And the final thing is, like, in that space, I usually ask my womb a message and just ask, do you have some wisdom to share with me? And just listen to whatever comes. It might come in a picture, might come in words, might come in a feeling, might come in a color, but starting to listen, because the next part of a relationship building is communication. It's like, how are you listening? And watch your life unfold in magical ways.
Amazing. This is amazing. I love this practice of like, let's say, enhancing the power of a relationship with your womb, because like you can have a relationship with every part of your body really, but the womb is like such a powerful organ. So if you have a relationship with this powerhouse, then it can actually really change your life. So is this practice one of the ways how you can decrease your period pain? Like, does the period pain get affected if you connect to your womb? And if yes, then how does it even happen? And also, what are other ways of like handling your period pain? Because for some women it's really severe, and for me in the past, before I did my 3 weeks fasting, like the fasting period like changed my period. But before I did the fast, I actually had very severe period pains, and I was also like you, I was just thinking, this should not be like that. It's not like the women are gonna suffer for so many days of the month, every month. Like, it's not supposed to be like that. Like, God wouldn't do this to us, I was thinking, or the universe wouldn't do it to us to just be in pain. So yeah, so does this meditation help? And also, what other things can help for period pain?
Yeah, I'm so passionate about healing period pain. I truly believe, and I've witnessed and that have the evidence of that period pain is really common, but it's not normal and it's not healthy. And it's a way of the womb, the way, one of the only ways, if maybe the only way that the body can speak to us is in symptoms. So it's the womb's way and the pelvis's way of sharing that there's a disimbalance, there's a disconnection, there's something out of balance happening. And often what that is, so many things that it can be, it's often something quite ancestral, and it comes from a place of epigenetics and a place of centuries, thousands of years of trauma in the female pelvis that hasn't been healed, hasn't been liberated, hasn't been harmonized, hasn't been looked at, hasn't even been talked about. And so we carry that somatized in the cells of our pelvis. And as a womb massage and pelvic massage practitioner, I've also had the embodied experience of just pressing one point on someone's pelvis and then them having like a big hysterical cry just from one point, and having a memory of their grandma or having a memory of this or something happened to them in their childhood. Everything is held in the body. And it's the way that the womb is communicating to us that is being stored there through the period pain. So there's so many ways you can heal it, and it's kind of one of my specializations. I have a whole podcast episode on my own podcast, Fundamental Feminine Wisdom. It's like an hour long of different tools that you can use to heal your period pain. I now have incredibly blissful, peaceful, almost like pleasurable bleeds now, going from intense pain I couldn't even get out of bed. So that's my journey. So I know it's possible in my own experience. The most important thing for me was to heal my sexual trauma through holistic, somatic healing. Also psycho-shamanic, like psychological shamanic energy. Somatic is body healing, releasing it from my body, releasing it from my memory, releasing it from my unconscious. Something else that was really important was to start doing, like, I work really deeply with the yoni egg. And so working the yoni egg has so many benefits, but one of them that's important for this is that it brings fresh blood flow into the pelvis. So it brings fresh, in Chinese medicine you say qi, which is a form of saying energy, into the pelvis. It also brings fresh oxygen, fresh blood flow. It's a tiny crystal egg that it's an ancient Taoist practice of 5,000 years old that you use inside your vagina. You insert with consciousness, with consent, with love, with care, and you do certain exercises. There's exercises that are more like pelvic strengthening and toning and relaxing. And then the other half of the practice is sexual energy practices. So learning to activate more subtle energy currents with this egg in the body, and learning how to circulate sexual energy all the way through the body, learning how to have full body orgasms, learning how to have a heart orgasm, learning how to have a pelvis orgasm, how to have a whatever, like learning how to use sexual energy to heal your body. So this practice was incredibly important because it also releases all the really clenched fascia. Often when we have period pain, there's a lot of coldness and stagnancy in the pelvic ligaments and fascia. So it's important to kind of like begin to release those consciously through these kind of practices. Also, through womb massage, I have really, really regular womb massage and yoni internal massage, having regular body work and like spiritual, connected, holistic massage in service to my body, in service to healing. Such a big difference, like having like a massage that you get at a hotel and then having a healer meet your body with such a level of detail, and to connect with your breath and to feel the emotions and to release trigger points and allow you to scream when something comes up, and hold the space for the full liberation of all the things we hold in our body, and the catharsis of that. And yeah, I was so inspired by that own healing of my womb massage, pelvic massage journey that I went and trained to offer it. And I do self practice, like probably most days for 5 to 10 minutes before I sleep. I massage my pelvis and release any points. I also do abdominal massage. So I release all the muscles in my abdomen, which just allows my body to relax. Um, and then the final one is the importance of building that connection again. Like the moment that you begin to connect to the sacredness of your womb and this powerful portal, which is able to birth life, to birth projects, to birth consciousness, to birth new ideas, and is this incredible gateway into the cosmos, into the divine. When you reconnect to that power, which has been, I suppose, deliberately disconnected because of because of the potency that it holds, it's been disconnected for a couple of thousand years. And so beginning that reconnection, becoming the chain breakers of our ancestry, becoming the chain breakers of our lineages, even if we don't want to have children, we become this like radiant, embodied example of, for the women, for the people, for the men, for the children around us. Like for me to feel connected to my womb and just to be living my life the way that I am, living cyclically, honoring my blood, honoring my moon, honoring my cycle, like doing the practices that I do, just living and breathing it as an example for people around me. And they start to get curious and they start to see that there's another way that feels more harmonious and more empowered. And so even if you don't want to have children, you're still becoming the chain breaker of your lineage. You become that invitation for people around you. And to be honest, I wouldn't be where I was if I wasn't surrounded by chain breakers during my journey. Like, and looking at these different amazing people who have supported me and throughout life so far, and been like, I want to be like you. I want to get to where you are. I want to feel connected to my body. I want to like know things about my moon. I want to know things about my blood. I want to know how to heal my period pain. And if they weren't the example of it, then I would never have even known it was possible. Um, and so it's so beautiful to begin that womb reconnection journey and get to know the wisdom of your womb. I'm a really, really, really big advocate of womb-centered business, creating a business that's in alignment with your cycle, the phases of your cycle, the yin and the yang of your cycle. And also, I take most decisions, if not all of them, from my womb. I ask my womb every single question in my business. And I have never regretted any answers or any intuitions that have come from that. They've always been the most incredible paths of empowerment for
Wow,
me.
and there is a reason why people say
Yeah.
womb wisdom, right? This is like a common term in the spirituality field, I think, to say the wisdom of the womb, because it is wise, the same way as our heart is wise and we can ask it questions and it can answer. But the womb has something, it's like motherly almost vibe. It's like the I don't know, just as you say, like ancestral, like the wisdom of the elder or something. At least that's how I associate it, because it's been there. Like that's how I see it. It's like we've been in our grandma's womb already, right? So our ancestral energy is there already, because like we were in our grandma in a way, so already as an egg in our mom. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's all interconnected. Thank you so much for sharing this. I feel like it's really, really useful for people to actually try all these methods, because so many people have period pain. And I honestly believe that a lot of the period pain is also caused because of the chemicals that are in the birth control and the contraception pills, right? Because this is not natural for
Yeah.
us at all. And I've been taking
Sure.
these for a few years when I was I don't know, a teenager, maybe until I was, I don't know, 22 or something, up to the point where I discovered spirituality. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to put any chemicals, any pills in my body anymore, because it actually is not the right way to do this. Like my body is wise and it knows what to do. I just need to maybe like align with it in a way that I'm going to get the outcome that I want, but I shouldn't, put anything on its own way of healing or functioning. And I feel like birth control is depending on what kind of birth control you're using, but it's something that the pills, especially, it's something that can really get you out of the cycle of nature, really. That's how I see it. And so what do you recommend as like a
Yeah.
natural birth control without having to take freaking chemical pills?
Yeah. Thank you for speaking to that. Um, there were two things I wanted to touch upon on what you just shared. Like one of the most important things, there's so many steps that I take clients through and through my courses and programs, is like, so there's so many layers of like releasing. And one of them is completely transforming all of your products, beauty products, household products, the food you eat, into natural, 100% natural and organic. The organic is so important because it's so important not to put pesticides, so important not to put endocrine disruptors into your body and chemicals into your body, because they disrupt your hormone system exponentially. And so one of the biggest points is that, and in part of that means also releasing commercial tampons that are filled with chemicals and toxins and bleach. And so that's a big transition that usually shifts period pain actually overnight. Um, and especially like really not using a tampon, because tampons are incredibly disruptive for and cause a lot of contraction in the pelvis. And there was something else, and one other thing is like also in that way building a relationship to your blood. Like, can you really look at your blood and look at it as this life-giving medicine that's full of nutrients and full of stem cells and full of there's 7 times more iron in menstrual blood than regular blood. There's 50 times more calcium in menstrual blood than regular blood. High amounts of amino acids. There's high amounts of stem cells, unique stem cells that they're using in cancer research to heal people. And also the final thing is that it has the 3 main macronutrients: phosphorus, potassium, and nitrogen, which are the 3 main components of any natural plant fertilizer. So if you feed your moon blood with a little bit of water, because it's quite strong, so you need to water it down, to a plant, it will sprout. It's holding that life force. It's the energetics of life and the medicine of life. So can you really look at your blood and see it for that? And release the puritanical conditioning, release the religious texts, release the family, the cultural conditioning, and really look at the truth of what you're holding, which is the elixir of life. It's what was I saying? Yeah, looking at this thing like it's this elixir, not thing, this medicine, like it's life force in your hands, that's bright red, beautiful crimson red. And actually allowing yourself to feel love and compassion or acceptance is a really big part of healing period pain. Just to even look for the first time can be such a deep ancestral healing for you. And then moving on to the contraceptive. So having the pill, specifically the birth control pill, it deletes your period completely. It shuts down your ovaries. And it's actually essential to be ovulating every single month during your ovulation years for long-term longevity, for long-term health, for your bone health, your brain health, for your cardiovascular health. It's so important for your whole entire system to be circulating those hormones. And one of the most incredible naturopaths and kind of like period witches, if you like, of this time has been working for 20 years and cultivating research through her clinical practice. Lara Bryden talks about how every ovulation is, I wish I could remember exactly how she words it, but like every ovulation is like almost like a piece in the bank for your long-term health. Like a, what do you call that? Like a saving in the bank for your long-term health. And So shutting down the ovaries and also flattening the hormones so that they're non-existent, the natural circular hormones, has such incredibly detrimental effects to long-term health. And I really am a strong believer of informed consent. And unfortunately, a lot of the doctors giving out the pill and giving out birth control, and for me, I had the Meridian coil, they aren't informed themselves. And there's a lot of patriarchal systems and structures inside medical schools that are not feminine empowered. In fact, all of the feminine pelvis is named after men who actually, in most cases, tortured Black women in order to excavate the female pelvis. Without antiseptic, without clean tools, a lot of pain was undertaken in order to name parts of the female pelvis. There's so much controversy in underpinning the gynecological, which was mostly most of the research is created by men. And so the pill came in and it offered sexual liberation, and it offered a lot of incredible tools for the feminine in a way. But that was 20 or so more years ago now, 30 years ago now. So where are we at now in our human consciousness, in our body literacy, in our connection to our bodies, in our connection to healing the trauma that the generations before us have experienced? And there's a lot of really detrimental health effects and cancerous health effects, and all of the research is there of what happens to your body after having the pill long term. It's all there. There's multiple resources, multiple different stems and branches. It's all there, but yet somehow it's being ignored because it's not convenient. So I also have a whole podcast episode, I think it's number 2 on my podcast, with Dr. Cassandra Wilder, about all of the different long-term side effects of birth control and hormonal intervention. So I learned 2 years ago, I started to learn fertility awareness method. There's many different types. It's shortened into FAM. I work with the symptothermal method. There can be some confusion because our parents, mostly our parents, or maybe you're a parent listening to us, so then your generation used this thing called the rhythm method, which was incredibly ineffective. And so people get them confused that this one is incredibly effective and has around a 98.4% effective rate when used in perfect conditions. And so there's no side effects. The side effects are that you feel empowered, you get connected to your body, you get connected to your cycle, you get connected to your rhythms, you get to have informed consent, and it's working with the wisdom of your body and nothing else. You don't need anything outside of you to be sexually sovereign, to be sexually empowered and empowered in your cycle. And it's a form of tracking your cycle. So symptothermal, symptoms, and thermal is temperature. So the first thing is you learn with incredible detail, you have to do a training for this, incredible detail how to track your cervical mucus and your discharge. And there's a really big shift that begins to happen. After the training and learning the nuances and all the little things, you start to really embody watching and being the kind of viewer of your cervical or your discharge. And at the beginning of your fertile window, your cervical mucus goes from kind of a sticky white liquid, into it starts to become clear and stretchy like raw egg white. And it's called peak cervical fluid. So when you're in your peak window, which is very short, 1 or 2 days, it will be so stretchy that you can put it between your fingers and hold it, and it will stay as a string, and it will be clear like egg white. That only happens during your fertile window. So that's the symptom one. The second symptom that people use is the cervix. The cervix goes from, it moves during your cycle. So during your bleed, it's much further down, closer to your vulva in your vagina. And it has the consistency of the end of your nose. So you can touch the end of your nose if you're listening and just feel, okay, that's what it feels like. And then during ovulation, it lifts all the way up high in your vaginal canal, and it turns the consistency of your bottom lip. So really soft. It's incredible to do like cervical orgasmic healing de-armoring during this time because your cervix is very receptive and soft and open to cervix healing. And so this is the signal number 2. The next one is temperature. So one of them is taking your temperature every morning, your basal body temperature. Super simple. It's like adding a new habit. It takes like 30 seconds every morning as you get up, you're in bed, you take your temperature. And so the change in your cervical mucus shows that as it starts to change, you'll notice, okay, so my fertile window is impending, it's coming. So you know, okay, like that, and I really need to reinforce that this needs to be learned with a teacher, and there are details if you want to use this for, what do you call that? Like, if you want to use this for prevention of pregnancy, you really need to study with a teacher and you work with graphs and there are nuances. But then once you've got it, it's like learning a piece of algebra. Like once you've got it, it's like, oh, okay, easy. Now I can just go through the motions and I've got all the details. So the cervical mucus shows that the change is coming, that the fertile window has begun. So this is not a good time to have someone coming inside of you or having semen inside of you if you're preventing. And then as you take your temperature, what happens is as you ovulate, there is you have a release of a hormone called LH, and you enter into your luteal phase, and this is basically in preparation for pregnancy or potential pregnancy. Your body temperature rises to create like a kind of oven for your potential baby. So your temperature rises really slightly, like 0. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's 0.2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or something on your chart. And so when you see that shift, or when you're graphing, you see your line of before ovulation is down at the bottom, and then you see the shift within a day. And then all the numbers after that are way higher up in your graph. Bearing in mind that the graph is super zoomed in, so it's like point decimals zoomed in. And this is because after you've ovulated, your body temperature rises to prepare for a potential baby. It doesn't know that you're not pregnant yet. So the shift in temperature shows that the ovulation's already occurred. So now you have a 2-point window. And so you know that it's impending and you know that it's occurred. And that's kind of like the framework, and you get to know your body so deeply. I don't necessarily use this touch of my cervix, like the change in my cervix, so much. I track my cervical mucus, and it's so profound for me. Like I just know immediately that I'm ovulating. I also feel the energetics of it. Now I understand all the different phases of my cycle. I can feel that I'm ovulating. And again, there are lots of nuances. For example, sperm can live inside the female body for up to 6 days. So there's different parts that you have to learn in order to get this if you really want to use this for prevention. But the empowering thing, the thing for me that's like, oh, okay, I need to take this back into my hands. Penis keepers or men are fertile, if they're fertile, because obviously not all men are in this present moment. They're fertile every single day. Womb keepers are fertile for 30% of their cycle. That's it. 30%. That's it. Not the whole of their cycle, all of the other things. It's just 30%. So that's not information that we're offered. And so when you realize that actually there's been an imbalance of sexual sovereignty and responsibility and accountability. It's like, okay, so there is an imbalance. The only thing I can do right now is re-empower myself with new education and reconnect to the wisdom of my body, because again, the body speaks in symptoms. So how can we also use positive symptoms or wise symptoms that are telling us the changes of our ovulation, changes of our fertility, and actually get to become this term body literate with ourselves?
Oh my God, amazing. I freaking love everything you've shared. And it's so inspiring because I've been also thinking about some natural ways of doing it. And actually, my brother has inspired this question within me because he was like, I want something like natural, but I don't know really what to do. And also, I feel like this thing is very dependent on a woman, like this specific method, right? On a woman knowing her body and knowing herself enough to say, okay, now is the time or now is not the time. And so I feel like it's actually quite nice for us women to be able to get in touch more with our body, with our womb, and actually know this, because this thing should be taught at school. Like, it's one of these things that, like, why the hell are we not taught that, right? We would have so much more awareness about ourselves, about our body, if we could just like track this. And we are just taught some superficial things that are quite unuseful most of the time. At least in Poland, the education system is like, we learn a lot of things, but a lot of them are just not very useful. And so I feel like what you just shared is just so on point and so useful. So thank you so much, because it's been something that I really wanted to learn about more. And so to all the people who listen, who are really inspired by everything you shared, what is the best way to contact you or to find you, your programs, your content, or other things that you offer?
Yes. And before I do that, I want to make a little a wink also to the men, if there are any men listening, that when you begin your Tantra journey, it's not actually just up to the women to know, because in tantric practice, the men are learning how to circulate their orgasmic energy, and sex no longer becomes about ejaculation. In fact, ejaculation is taken off the table, and it's actually about union and learning how for men to have full body orgasms without ejaculating. So there becomes a level of sexual sovereignty in that part of the journey too, where it's actually partly fertility awareness method, partly a man has complete ability, control, choice to whether he ejaculates or not. And that's another journey. But I just want to plant that seed.
Oh yes, oh yes, sister, amazing. That's great that you planted the seed. I feel like men need it.
Oh yeah, and there's so many health benefits because it's your life force. You give away so much energy and life force and vitality, and there are incredible, incredible health benefits, manifesting benefits, and longevity benefits to doing that practice and learning that practice. Do recommend having a guide though, because again, there are certain things, steps, resistances, things to learn along the way to get there. Yeah. So, how can we connect with me? I'm on Instagram. My name is I am Melissa, Melissa Sanger. I am Melissa Sanger, my name. My website is www.melissasanger.com. I have a podcast, Fundamental Feminine Wisdom. It's on all podcast platforms. And then right now I have kind of this year and the forthcoming years, I'm kind of focusing on two projects a year. One is a 7-month mentorship training, and the other one is a retreat. And yeah, if you kind of want to jump in between those two places, I have two masterclasses on my website. One on the menstrual cycle, like 3 hours in depth of spiritual science, scientific wisdom, and then I have another one on pleasure and yoni anatomy, how to reconnect to your yoni and learn how to know about where your anatomy is, but also learn how to reactivate and resensitize your internal orgasms and learn all of that good stuff. So that's kind of like a middle ground. If you're kind of curious, but you're feeling like, I just want to peek inside, I'm not ready to like jump in yet. And then I just launched, and we start on April the 1st. I'm not sure when this is coming out, but we start on April the 1st for 7 months, a 7-month online school, Sacred Feminine Wisdom School, called the Venusian Wisdom School. The Venusian Wisdom School. And in that, we have 7 modules. Each module, the first is ancestral womb healing. Then we go through all phases of the menstrual cycle: menstruation, follicular, ovulation, luteal. And then the 5th month is redefining feminine pleasure, so sexual healing and awakening journey. And then the final, did I miss a month? No. And then the final month is cyclical business, herbs for your cycle, cyclical living, womb-centered business, and kind of tying all the ends together. And this is kind of a school that I've created that's a place where everything that I've learned and all the best nuggets I've learned about sexual healing, womb healing, and feminine empowerment all in one place. It's the only way to work with me one-to-one right now. And it's a mixture. It's just 7 places. So it's super intimate. Like, I desire that quality of intimacy and the kind of like high input that I'm able to give in that intimacy, and the high output that will come through your transformation. And you work one-to-one with me each month, and we work as a group in group embodiment live sessions, healing sessions together, going like super deep into all the topics that we're learning. So that starts on April the 1st. And I'd love to offer anyone listening a special discount. You're welcome to receive, and my gift to you is to receive £133 British pounds, 133 British pounds off of either the payment plan or the, what do you call that? Pay in full plan, or whatever you want to call that. Pay in full pricing. The code is Venusian Rose. Venusian Rose. And then the final thing is I'm holding an incredible 9-day wild women retreat in the Ecuadorian jungle at the end of this year in December, from the 1st to the 9th of December. We're almost full. There's a couple of spaces left. And the same with the Venusian Wisdom School. We're half full now. But yeah, it's called the Wild Feminine Retreat. Both of these are on my website. And this is like a deep dive into all of the topics I've just been saying, but more in a retreat style. Like, there's some relaxing happening. It's in the beautiful jungle, eco-village, connection to sisterhood, dancing, womb healing. We're going to go on a mushroom jungle hike. We're going to do a temescal, an ancient sweat lodge, work with a local medicine woman. And the fertility of that land is like beautiful, thick leaves and vibrant birds and crickets and glittering sunlight as you wake up. It's a beautiful, magical place. So receiving the healing of that and just being like totally immersed in sisterhood for 8-9 days is life-changing. So yeah, that's also happening. The Wild Feminine Retreat. It's also like a jungle next to the ocean. So we have that like beautiful choice to jump in the ocean and then be in the jungle and then jump in the ocean and kind of dance as the wild women in that way. So those are the ways that you can connect with me from now.
That all sounds freaking amazing. It's awesome. I would love to join one of your retreats in the future for sure. Not sure if it's going to happen in December specifically, because I wanted to go to Costa Rica. But I'm going to keep in touch with you for sure. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. This was a really amazing and informative podcast episode. I feel like I learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone who listens learned a lot as well. So thank you so much, Melissa, for your wisdom and for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope that everyone listening has received some beautiful new seeds for their journey, to know that they hold the power and that they can heal themselves, and that healing is possible, miracles are possible, and that hopefully I can provide as an example of a woman who's gone from the darkest of darks and is still dancing in the dark sometimes, but like all of the traumas and disorders until this point, this feeling of being in my feminine empowerment. And I hope that inspires you deeply, and to remember to have a lot of compassion and love for yourself on the way.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, beautiful souls, for listening to us. If you'd like to contact me to maybe be interviewed on the podcast or to have a transformative healing session, I am The Connection Catalyst on Instagram. And yeah, stay tuned to the next episode.